Hello, I am the accessibility lead at Skyscanner. And just for those who don't know Skyscanner, we're an online global travel brand. And we help travellers find great flights, hotels, and car hire. And we've got about 100 million users a month at the moment. So all over the world, we translate into 35 different languages. And we really do want to be able to allow every traveller to use us, including travellers with disabilities. But when I started there, it was about 4 years ago, and I started as a UX writer in the design team. And actually, it was during my interview process that I was asked to do a UX critique of the app. And I was happily going through it and then realised, wait a minute, there's quite a few accessibility issues here, which was really surprising. And it was for two reasons surprising. Firstly, I didn't really knew that I knew what to look out for, but I'd come from RBS where we'd been building accessible account opening systems, and we had a couple of really strong accessibility champs there. And I just learned it was just part of what we did. It was part of all the processes, and we were creating this good stuff. And then at Skyscanner, it was like, oh, that's obviously not a priority or being looked at all. So yeah, that was the other surprising thing, was that it wasn't on their radar, because they were, well, they're a cool young tech startup, and I thought they'd be all over it, but they weren't. So I joined and went on a bit of a mission to try and rectify that, and ended up moving out of the role as a UX designer, a UX writer, sorry, into an accessibility role that I wrote for myself, but was allowed to do. So I was very happy about that. And the program's now been running for about 3 years. Yeah, and it's going really well.
Yeah. How do you personally go about explaining the importance of online accessibility to someone who'd perhaps never heard of it or wasn't aware of it?
So I would probably start by talking about the fact that 1 in 5 people have a permanent disability, and that actually, that's quite a lot. It's a high number, and that 70% of those disabilities are hidden. So I think a lot of people, when they hear the word disability, they assume it's we're talking about someone in a wheelchair or someone who's blind, with a guide dog or a cane. But the fact that 70% are hidden, and you can't tell that someone has a disability by just looking at them, there's so much more to it, and it's a much broader group. And I kind of talk about, from that, I talk about all the different permanent disabilities that people could have that would affect how they use technology. So it would affect how they interact with our website or app. But then I also mention the temporary disabilities and the situational disabilities that every single person can have every day. So to bring it back to whoever I'm talking to, this could help you as well. And I quite often give examples of, like me in the morning trying to read my phone without my glasses on. I use the BBC app because I can read it, whereas other news apps, I can't. The text is too small, too pale. I can't see it, or they're not working with my enlarged text setting that I have on my phone. So it really does apply to everybody.
How do you think the internet will change over the next 10 years, or the web maybe more specifically? And what specific features or habits that exist now would you hope that will be seen as from their time?
This is a good question. So I'm going to take a very optimistic view on this question. Others might not agree, but I think that the way the web is now, we all have so much access to so much information. We can talk to anyone we want. We can learn about so much about different people in different situations in different countries. We can understand a bit more about people and their differences. And I think that is making us all think in a more inclusive way. And I know at Skyscanner, even in the last 4 years, that we've always been a really inclusive business, and I love that about the company. But even in the last 4 years, I can see improvements being made in terms of inclusion all the time. We have different networks in the business set up. We have a pride network, a race network. We've just set up a women's network. I have my accessibility champions network as well. But it's just providing more information and more understanding, and therefore giving people the ability to be more inclusive and the desire to be more inclusive. So I think that if that continues, I'm hoping anyway that people who make the internet, who make websites, will be thinking along those lines as well, be more understanding of people with differences who they're creating barriers for. And I hope that they will then automatically not do that anymore. But there's so much there. Like the thing that I don't want to happen anymore, and I hope is just gone, is the fact that you need to sell in accessibility to leadership. You know, like when I first brought it up at Skyscanner, I had to, give a business case. I had to talk about ROI and all of these things. And I hope in 10 years' time that part will be gone, and it'll just be this is how we design websites. This is how we build websites, and it's just part of that whole thing. But so much has to change to get to that as well. Like education, I don't know why it's not mentioned in courses, but I've spoken to quite a lot of students, or particularly graduates who have come into the business. It's barely touched on. It's not on their radar, which is crazy when it really genuinely means better UX or a higher quality code. Why is it not discussed, or taught? So I could get on another mission actually and try and change that. But I think it's improving. It's certainly improving.
If you're with someone who needs to check how accessible their website is, but they only have 5 minutes, talk us through how you would go about showing them. You might have touched on this earlier, but.
Well, I have a very, very recent example of this. I did exactly this morning, because I'm talking at a conference next week, and someone got in touch saying, I'm coming to your session, it'd be great to meet up. And they're from a software development agency, and they have worked with us before, I believe, but I was kind of saying, well, I'm probably not the right person to speak to unless you're offering some kind of accessibility support. So anyway, I went onto their website just to check out how accessible they were, and it took me 2 minutes. I first opened up their website and I started tabbing through. So I put my cursor up into the search bar, or the URL bar, sorry, and I started tabbing through as if I was a keyboard-only user, and instantly went, they're not accessible. I couldn't see where I was on the page. The focus indicator was non-existent, which I don't understand, because normally there's a default one from a browser. I was in Chrome, it wasn't even there. The order of the tabbing was all over the place. It wasn't reaching some parts. It was just absolutely not accessible. Then I turned on the screen reader. So actually, I tend to do that on my phone just because it's easier. So I put the website into my phone, turned on VoiceOver. Again, just within 10 seconds, it was telling me there was a button, but it didn't tell me there was no label on that button. And then I went back onto the computer and tried to zoom in up to 400% just to see if it held together. It didn't. So honestly, that all took me literally 2 minutes. And then just out of interest, I went back into Chrome, and I've got a Chrome plugin called Accessibility Insights, and you can just let it run. You can go do quite detailed automated checks, but you can check individual things. So I just checked heading levels. They were all over the place. I checked color contrast, and actually the best thing about it that I love is when you're tabbing through something, if you've got Accessibility Insights on, it'll map where you are on the screen and it'll give you numbers. So it's like giving you this little pathway of the tabbing, and it's really then clear to see if you've got a problem with the tabbing order.
The ordering and things. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good. So it's a free plugin. So I did that just to have another final check, and then I emailed her back to say, I don't think we'll be meeting. Firstly, I don't think I'm the right person to talk to anyway, but secondly, your website's not accessible.
And in terms of the adoption of accessible digital products, what do you think is the biggest challenge?
There's a lot of challenges, I would say. And I think it depends where you're at in your journey, what the biggest challenge is at the time. You know, at the very beginning of the process, I might have said leadership buy-in was a challenge, but now we're beyond all of that. The company's bought into, yes, we're doing this. It's absolutely the right thing to do. We want to be good at it. For us at the moment, I think the biggest challenge is the varying level of knowledge. So, or a skills gap, if you want to call it that. There's, yeah, it just varies so much. So even although the intention is there, we're trying to embed accessibility into all of the different processes that we have, it still feels that people don't quite know how to do their part, how to make what they're doing accessible. And I think the more you delve into it, the more complex it seems. So there's a lot of quick wins that people can do, particularly around things like color contrast. You know, that's quite an easy one to fix, or to make sure you don't create problems, as long as your color contrast is high enough so that people can read the text against, you know, the backgrounds. That's quite straightforward, but the more you look into it and you start looking at how to make something accessible for screen reader users, it can get a little bit technical and a little bit complex. So I don't know if that scares people off, or maybe it's because it's not something that people are doing all day, every day. So it's not something that becomes totally embedded in how they think. But I think, yeah, at the moment, its level of knowledge is an issue. So I'm trying to make the first half of next year, trying to really promote education, and I want to put on lots of different workshops and training sessions and try and speak to people in a way that's going to really hit home to them.
What's the one thing that every single person can do or learn to play a part in the progression towards a more accessible internet or web?
Tricky to say one thing, but I will say, to summarize that, I would say that whatever part someone plays in the creation of the web, whether that's, you know, designing, writing, developing, testing, even project management, don't just build for you, but build for everybody. And for each discipline, I think it's slightly different ways to do that. So for designers, I think personas are so useful. If you work with personas already, make sure that you include a couple of personas with different disabilities. Even things like color blindness can be something so easy to design for, but if you're not thinking about it, it can be quite easy to create those barriers again. So yeah, I would suggest those for designers. For writers, like content designers or UX writers, when they're creating visual content, I try and ask our writers to think about the hidden content at the same time. So you've got the text that's appearing on screen, but sometimes you have to have additional text, as you'll know all about this, additional text to describe images to people who can't see the screen, they're listening to it, or to describe icons or buttons that don't have wording on them, that kind of thing. I try and ask the writers to think about that while they're writing the visual content, so that it should be in the same tone of voice. It should be, for us, translated as well into all the different languages at the same time. Again, so it's just, you know, embedding it into what they're doing. For the developers and testers, I would ask people to think about, okay, this is how you interact with your device, or this is how you access our website, but think about how other people are accessing it. And I've talked about it already, but, you know, the keyboard only users and the screen reader users are two great examples. I'd love all developers to be really aware of how screen readers work, and how to test then when they're building something, how to have a listen to it themselves on their own device. Screen readers are built into every computer and every phone now, so it's easy to do. Also, you know, people who are navigating just by their voice, we have to think about making sure that works as well. And there are lots of different ways of interacting. So as long as people are aware of it and trying to build for it. And then project managers, I think these people are key to the whole thing. because they've got this lovely overview of the whole project or process. They're writing the requirements at the beginning, so those requirements should include make this work for people with disabilities, and you can go into so much detail in those requirements to make sure it happens. And then they should be expecting accessible design coming out from the design team. They should be allowing a little bit of extra time for the developers to build and test these things. I really do think they hold the key.